Welcome to The Explainer. We hear the word entrepreneur thrown around constantly, right? It's usually tied to tech billionaires or these super flashy startups. But today, we're doing something different. We're diving into the actual nuts and bolts of building something of immense value out of literally nothing. And we're looking at this specifically through the lens of South Africa's totally unique economic landscape. Let's get into it.
So, let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. Is every local shop owner truly an entrepreneur? We have this tendency to just group anyone running their own company into one giant bucket. But is that actually accurate? Think about it. Is the person running a quiet corner store really applying the same economic forces as someone building a massively disruptive tech platform? To really grasp how economic growth works, we've got to separate these two concepts.
Here is the crucial difference. True entrepreneurship is all about pulling together raw resources. We're talking land, labor, and capital, and putting them entirely on the line. These folks aren't just operating a business, they are the architects of it. They step right into the unknown, deciding exactly what gets produced and how, intending to make a profit, but fully aware that they might lose every single resource they've poured into it. It's that absolute assumption of financial risk that truly sets an entrepreneur apart.
This comparison brilliantly illustrates that divide. On one side, your standard small business owner is generally just looking for stability, They want to ensure survival and earn a reliable personal income without taking on those big growth risks. But the entrepreneur? They are inherently restless. They actively seek out risk and chase aggressive growth. They're constantly mobilizing natural, human, and financial resources, even if it means putting their own current stability completely on the line.
Section 1. The stakes. Let's look at South Africa's economic context. Here is the massive, urgent burden resting on the shoulders of new ventures. For South Africa to actually improve its economic conditions, we desperately need a target GDP growth rate of 6%. That is a huge number. But here is the catch. True entrepreneurship remains a tremendously scarce resource in the country. So hitting that 6% target absolutely relies on finding and supporting way more of these risk takers.
To ground this in reality, let's just look at some local titans. People like Patrice Motsope of African Rainbow Minerals, Koos Becker at Naspers, Adrian Gore with Discovery, Michiel Leroux of Capitec Bank, and Mark Shuttleworth with Ubuntu. These aren't just businesses, they are vital pillars of the economy, and they were all built on massive initial risks. These individuals literally embody that definition of mobilizing resources to trigger unprecedented job-creating growth. But why do people actually take this crazy leap? Well, the data reveals two very different starting lines. First, you have the necessity entrepreneur. They're often pushed into it, like maybe they faced retrenchment and simply have to build a business to support their family. Then, you have the opportunity entrepreneur. They're pulled in. They spot a brilliant gap in the market and consciously decide to capitalize on it. Both are vital, sure, but they start from totally different psychological places.
Let's shift gears to Section 2, the blueprint. Mapping out the entrepreneurial process.
It really all starts with step 1, a simple decision to enter the arena. From there, step 2 is honestly assessing your skills and resources. Then, step 3, you identify those core opportunities. Step 4 is the critical filter, conducting a rigorous feasibility analysis to ensure your idea actually has a chance to survive in the wild. And finally, step 5, you consolidate all of this into a rock-solid business plan designed to convince investors that your venture is going to succeed. Think of it like a dynamic framework. You, the entrepreneur, sit right in the middle of this. You act as the vital, strategic link connecting a raw opportunity, the resources required, and the organization that eventually capitalizes on it all. Whether you succeed or fail basically comes down to how well you create a fit between these moving parts, constantly learning and adapting as you go.
And listen, you cannot survive this journey without a very specific, demanding toolkit. A brilliant idea is completely worthless if you don't have the financial skills to manage cash flow or the marketing skills to reach consumers, and perhaps most importantly, if you lack human relations and project management skills, you simply won't be able to lead the team you've assembled. It requires strategy, it requires planning, it's a high-stakes balancing act.
Okay, Section 3, Avenues of Entry. Let's talk about choosing your path. If you choose to skip the startup phase and buy an existing business, weighing the real-world trade-offs is absolutely crucial. On the plus side, inheriting an established customer base and experienced staff feels incredibly safe, right? But on the flip side, you might also be taking on a threatened location, obsolete inventory, or past liabilities. It's a fast track, but it almost always comes with inherited baggage.
Alternatively, franchising allows you to act almost like an entrepreneur. You're innovating, but from the safety of an already proven system. The franchisor took that massive initial risk to prove the model. You're basically buying the right to operate using their established name, products, and systems, which significantly lowers your risk profile while still giving you a platform to own.
But here's a surprising avenue. You don't always have to quit your day job to be an entrepreneur. There's corporate entrepreneurship. This is where you develop a new business or diversify products using your current company's internal resources. Plus, as large companies outsource more non-core tasks, it opens up massive opportunities for professional service entrepreneurs to step in and fill those strategic gaps.
All right, our final section, Section 4, the future landscape, looking at technology and the small business.
The modern focus is shifting incredibly rapidly. Any sustainable competitive advantage today has to factor in the fourth industrial revolution, or 4IR. We're talking about using AI and automation as revolutionary tools to produce intelligent behavior. If you're starting a venture right now, regardless of the industry, you've got to ask yourself, how will automation disrupt my model? Or better yet, how can I use it to scale smarter than the competition?
Even if you aren't building some massive AI startup, it really helps to know the quantitative limits of your playing field. In South Africa, a small business has specific characteristics. We're generally talking about fewer than 200 employees, an annual turnover under 64 million rand, and capital assets under 23 million rand, all with direct managerial involvement from the owner. Knowing exactly where you fit in this ecosystem is crucial as you begin to scale.
Ultimately, these smaller entities serve an immensely strategic role. They are the vital gears keeping the larger economic machine moving. They experiment with production where big corporations are just too slow, they aid big business, and they provide that critical ground-level job creation needed to help hit that 6% growth target we talked about earlier.
So, based on all the data and the blueprint we've explored today, ask yourself, do you have the traits, the skills, and the risk appetite to become the economy's next driving force? Do you have that internal locus of control, that deep belief that you command your own destiny to move from simple survival to nation-shifting growth? The blueprint is right there, and the economy is waiting. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you never look at a local business the same way again.